From River West, the greatest neighborhood in the world, right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Hey, I forgot to mention this the last couple days, but over the weekend on, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. She's the host of Face the Nation, right? I get people confused. There's too much. Anyway, she was interviewing Tony Blinken, the new Secretary of State. And it's a very good interview. It's your Sunday show interview, full of lots of substance. And she finishes the interview, a little smile on her face. She said, "You're the first person in your position in quite a while, or ever, I don't remember how she put it, to have young kids. How are you going to handle the job and be a father to young children?" And I just loved it. Just a terrible question. It was a terrible question when they asked it to women in high positions. And of course, that's why she asked the question. Because every single woman that reaches a high position in any field, especially in government, when they're interviewed, they're asked that question. To the great shame of journalism. It was always a dumb question and never should have been asked. But this was the first time I've heard this question asked to a man. And so it was great. You know what? Ask it to men for the next couple of years and then just drop it for everybody, okay? But good for her or whatever producer came up with that idea. How in the world can you be the Secretary of State? You have 2 young children. What about your duties as a father? By the way, his answer was excellent. He said, "Well, my children are my inspiration. I want to build a better world for them." Very good, very good. And then he said, "And I got in-laws who are helping out quite a lot." Also very good. Yeah, I don't know if she expected an answer or not, but that's what she got. So high marks all around. Before this gets away from us, we have to pay tribute to Captain Sir Tom Moore. Captain Tom, Sir Tom. He's the old guy over in the UK who walked back and forth with his walker, did all those laps, and made millions of dollars or millions of euros or millions of whatever they spend in the UK these days for charity. Well, he passed away of COVID. Happened pretty quickly, diagnosed, brought to the hospital, and a day or two later, he died peacefully, they tell us, so that's good. So Captain Tom captured everybody's hearts, 100 years old. So salute to you, Captain Tom, Sir Tom. He was knighted, as we all saw. And then Hal Holbrook, we learned about his passing. It actually happened a couple of weeks ago, January 23rd. But we just found out. It was just announced by the family. So goodbye to Hal Holbrook, accomplished actor, stage actor, films, television, but best known for his portrayal of Mark Twain. He did a live stage one-man show, toured with it for years and years and years. He started doing it way back in college, I think, was the first time he did it. And he did it his whole career. And really, for a while there, everybody knew about Hal Holbrook and Mark Twain Tonight. It was a big old deal. And an album was released and PBS specials, and you could buy the video. And it was pretty fantastic. He really brought Mark Twain to life. And as a kid, probably not unique in any way. I imagine this applies to most of us. When we first read Mark Twain, when we first learn about Mark Twain in school as kids, and you read Tom Sawyer and you read Huck Finn, oh my gosh, you just fall in love. You fall in love with American literature. What a profound impact Mark Twain had on this nation. And Hal Holbrook just did this magical thing where he just brought Mark Twain to life. And that's when a lot of us learned that Mark Twain pretty much invented stand-up comedy. That's why they call it the Mark Twain Prize, the annual award given to America's top comedy writer or performer. If you've never caught the Mark Twain Award, I look forward to it every year. It's a big deal. It's like the Kennedy Center Awards, and there's a full hour program on PBS, and the recipient of the award is honored by their pals in the comedy world, and they get up and they pay tribute. And it's always, without fail, a very funny hour. It's one of the funniest hours of the year. And poignant and kind of wonderful, and it has this sort of gravitas that your typical stand-up special lacks. It's not a roast. Those are funny too. I love a good roast. Those are very funny. But it's nothing like that. It's just heartfelt and damn funny. And then the recipient gets the last word, and almost, in my experience, almost never fails. Yeah, check out the Mark Twain Award. I don't know what time of year it happens. I forget. But if you just YouTube it, if you just go search for it, you'll find plenty. So, Hal Holbrook, thanks for doing that. Thanks for bringing Mark Twain to life. Millions of people over the years got to experience that. Back to media journalism here for a minute. Last night on the NewsHour, Judy Woodruff was interviewing Senator John Barrasso, Republican of Wyoming, about the news of the day, and he was giving the kind of answers that you'd expect, and it was pretty annoying. I've got to say, a little side note here, the members of the Biden administration now getting all this FaceTime, all these interviews, for the most part, I give them high marks. And I'm speaking now as a media critic. I'm speaking now with, you can choose to believe this or not, but with objectivity. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a far lefty, so obviously the Democrats are closer to me on the spectrum. So yes, I suppose I would favor them. I would have some bias. But really, I'm being objective. They're actually answering questions. And they're not just BSing us at every turn. And some are better than others, but for the most part, they're just intelligent adults doing their best to explain policy. And it's so damn wonderful. So there's my little side note there. But yeah, Judy Woodruff. Okay, Judy Woodruff's talking to John Barrasso, and he's doing a lot of song and dance the way they do. Her final two questions, after kind of a wide-ranging conversation, second to last question was, Senator Barrasso, does the Orange Menace, she didn't use that term, I'm tossing that in, does the Orange Menace bear any responsibility for what happened on January 6th? And he answered, well, he spoke. He didn't come anywhere near an answer. He completely dodged the question. He went back into, it's unconstitutional to impeach him. And I think the closest he got was, that thing where they say, well, I would have chosen different words, maybe something like that. But anyway, yeah, nowhere close to an answer. Okay. Judy doesn't follow up, but she sort of does, because her next question is, I think she anticipated that he wouldn't answer. So her next question and final question was, should a future president use the same language as the Orange Menace did? And once again, completely, pulls a 180, ignores that question entirely, and blathers on about something that, sounds like political speak, kind of Orwellian. And with that, she said, well, thank you very much. And they went on to the next segment. Now, here's my suggestion for Judy Woodruff. If you're not going to badger him, I know that's not what you do. You're Judy Woodruff, and it's PBS NewsHour. So you guys, you don't do that. All right, fine. Here's my suggestion. You say, Senator Barrasso, You chose not to answer my last two questions. So I'll ask them again and give you another chance to answer. Otherwise, let's put it on record here that you've chosen not to answer those questions. So would you like another shot? Does the Orange Menace bear any responsibility for January 6th? And at that point, he would skip and dance some more, I'm sure. Then she would say, okay, very good. It's confirmed now. You're just choosing not to answer that question. Let's just make it clear for everybody that you're not fooling anyone. Now I'm into subtext. She doesn't have to say all this. But the point is, it's the responsibility of the journalist at that point to make it clear to the viewer that the question is not being answered. Because the job of a reporter is to disseminate truth as best they can discern it. And if you just let the interview subject have the last word, well, their little Orwellian doublespeak might well fool people into thinking that he did answer the question and that they just maybe didn't understand it. Or it's in such weird, vague, kind of cryptic code speak language that they think they understand it or they hear what they want to hear. So you can't let somebody like that have the last word if you're a journalist who cares about the truth. So at that point, Judy Woodruff, you should say, all right, audience, he has not answered the question. I've given him two chances, and he has chosen not to answer it. You want one more shot at the final one? Should a future president use the same language? Once again, tap dance. Once again, confirm. All right, you've chosen not to answer. Good night. Thank you. You know, I understand that you have a particular brand, some of you, and PBS NewsHour is the perfect example, but there are others. They want to stay within a certain range of collegiality. They don't want to fight with their interview subjects every night. And I don't blame them for that. It does get pretty tiresome after a while. It doesn't necessarily serve the audience just to see people fighting all the time. And these people are not only journalists, they're also human beings. They have to sleep at night. They have to finish their job at the end of the day and go home and try to relax. If you just spend all your time at work fighting with people, that can't be good for your mental health. So there are lots of reasons not to fight with them and not to badger them. I get it. But I think this is a really good solution. So anyway, that's my suggestion. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to lose it. You just have to say very clearly, look right into the camera, look right at your viewer and say, that person did not answer my question and deliberately said a lot of other foolishness that had nothing to do with my question. Say it right out loud while the person is there. Before you say, well, thanks for coming, good night. You give them another shot, they don't take it, fine. Make it clear to the audience what's going on. That's your job. That's what your audience needs. Oh, speaking of news media, Tom Brokaw has announced he's retiring from NBC News after 55 years. And I say, good riddance. I never liked Tom Brokaw. And, you know, when he was young, he was just a straight reporter. That's fine. You just send him out to a war zone or to a flood, and, you know, he reports. And he was just your very straight, regular old journalist. Fine. I got no complaints about that. But the minute they let Tom Brokaw start believing he was one of these wise old men of the newsroom and sharing his little opinions, he really revealed himself as someone who learned almost nothing from all his years of reporting. You know, in most cases, if you pay your dues as a foreign correspondent or as a White House correspondent or you're covering Congress or whatever your beat is, you tend to get some pretty good insight. And that's why when I'm shopping around for the kind of news I want to watch, and just a little reminder here for all of us, it's better to read your news. The quality and depth of information from New York Times, Washington Post, ProPublica has become one of my great go-tos. Politico, The Atlantic, wherever you go. Yeah, it's always going to be better in print. Always. But when you do go to the TV people, I really find that the reporters have the best insights. So, for example, ABC Sunday show, whatever they call it this week, with George Snuffleupagus. I avoid that pretty much because when they get to the panel, and I enjoy a good panel discussion. I like some analysis of the news. It's good. But they always have partisans. They've got Chris Christie, they got Rahm Emanuel, they've got Donna Brazile. And their philosophy is that if they get people from different parties, from different viewpoints, then they'll have a nice healthy debate and get different views. And they think this is the way it's supposed to work. But I find this format just rage and eye roll inducing. Turns into a little fist fight. Everybody's in their own corners. Their position in their particular faction creates this bias that they just can't escape, and it completely colors their analysis to the point where it's just pointless. I don't need to hear this. As opposed to, let's compare that to another program, a weekly program, which I try to catch, Washington Week on PBS, hosted for years by Gwen Ifill, the last couple of years by Robert Costa. And now I've noticed he hasn't been hosting for the last, since before the holidays. Is anybody know? Is Robert Costa all right? Is he sick? What's the deal? Because he's had fill-ins. He's had Yamiche Alcindor and Amna Navas in the host seat for the last few weeks. But I bring them up in great contrast to something like George Snuffleupagus because they have a panel of reporters. They don't have pundits. They don't have adversaries. They got reporters. I mean, really good reporters, smart people. When it's your job to get up every day to spend 8 or 10 or 12 hours of that day learning about what's going on in your particular beat, it's my job to get up every day and to know everything that's going on in Congress and what they're saying and what they mean and what they're doing and what's happening behind closed doors and what's in every bill, what's in every debate. That's your job. That's your profession. That's what you do all day long. You're going to get pretty smart about it. So these are the people I want to hear. I want to hear their analysis. I don't want to hear somebody like Chris Christie, whose job description is just to be, I'm not sure what his job description is. I'm not sure what he thinks when he gets up every morning. Let's just try to be relevant. Let's try to have an opinion about something if I'm called upon, so I can keep my big fat face in front of the television cameras. So I like reporters. I have great respect for actual reporters. And this whole line of conversation started because I was talking about Tom Brokaw, who just completely failed. If you spent any time in the last 20 years listening to Tom Brokaw, it's just nothing. It's vapid. He's got nothing to say. And when he does have something to say, outside of just straight reporting, when it evolves into analysis or opinion, his white rich guy bubble just fills the air. Yeah, as soon as Tom Brokaw got to that position of the elder statesman in the newsroom, I couldn't stand the guy. His worst offense, his very worst offense, was on 9/11, when he took it upon himself to announce to the world that the attack on the World Trade Center was an act of war, and that the United States was now at war. Now, without getting back into that whole debate, you know how I feel. Our response to 9/11 was the biggest folly, the most tragic mistake this nation has ever made. Just completely transforming the life of the nation, the lives of all of us, by taking the bait of those 19 terrorists and responding with tanks and planes and invading whole nations and torturing enemy combatants. We went insane immediately. There were some voices at the time, believe it or not, if you don't remember, because they were drowned out. I don't blame you if you've never even heard them, who were warning us, no, this is the biggest mistake we could make. We have to treat this like the massive crime that it is, and with the cooperation of literally the entire world, except for one or two rogue nations. The entire planet had our backs. If we treated the Trade Center and the Pentagon like crime scenes instead of battlegrounds, we could have and should have, again, with the help of the whole world, track down the perpetrators, flush them out, prosecute them with the full extent of international law. We needed a massive and globally coordinated police investigation to solve a crime and to serve justice on the perps. But instead, we waved the flag, we invaded nations, we rolled tanks, we violated the privacy of every American by setting up this big surveillance state. We went to the dark side, as Cheney said, with these secret prisons all around the world. Designate anybody you want as an enemy combatant, capture them, jail them, torture them. Well, I said I wasn't going to get into all this. It just really irks me to this day how the world just completely transformed because of the worst decision an administration could possibly make. When the idiot in chief let Cheney and Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz and the gang talk him into this power grab. And there was Tom Brokaw, before the dust even settled, telling all of America, all of the world, that we're at war. He was the first one to say it. And I hated him for it. In the moment. Right the very second he said it. And from that moment forward, it was just the assumption. It was the default. Everybody just agreed without even discussing it. So can you tell? I don't like Tom Brokaw. I never liked him. I think I already didn't like him because of the second worst thing he ever said. And it was just this little offhanded comment he made during some big parade. I don't know if it was the Macy's parade or something. But as I recall, this was a long time ago, so it's a little hazy here. But as I recall, there were big old corporate flags. There was, I don't know, big old corporate flag of General Motors or something, or General Electric, or these corporate flags right alongside American flags. And Tom Brokaw decides to opine about how beautiful that is. That's really what America is, isn't it? This is a wonderful marriage between corporations, the private enterprise, and government. I can't do a Tom Brokaw impression. That's my best impression. But he almost got teary-eyed about how this was such a beautiful representation of what America is. This kind of symbiotic, equal power-sharing arrangement we have between multinational corporations and the highest levels of American government. He thought that was just really great. And he had to make a little comment. So that one really got my attention. And that was prior to 9/11. And so when he said the we're at war thing, America is at war, okay, Tom, I guess you decide that. I was already predisposed to not liking the guy. And that really did it. I just had a white-hot hate for him ever since. I know you're surprised. I'm a friendly guy. I like to assume everybody's just doing their best. And I guess Tom Brokaw, you can include him. He's just doing his best. It's not like he's an evil guy. He's just a big, rich, white dimwit who lives in this rich, white, privileged bubble. And despite his years as a reporter, somehow he didn't learn anything. Or maybe, as what happens when you get a bunch of money and you get a bunch of power, you become evil and stupid. We've talked about this a few times, right? Do you remember, you and I, we've talked about this. Psychologists have told us, the researchers have confirmed, the more money you have, the more power you have, the dumber you are, and the more evil you are. They don't exactly know why. They're still working on that. But the correlation is indisputable. Well, I guess the theme of this episode has really become a media critique. I apologize if we fall back on that a little too often. But that really is it's what I do. So while we're there, can I mention one other thing? I told you just a couple days ago that I gave in to my prior addiction. Was that just Monday, I think we were talking about this? Yeah, that's right. Over our break, you and I were apart for a couple of weeks. And over the break, I relapsed. I fell off the wagon. And I fell back into my cable news addiction, which I endlessly preach to you about. Don't get hooked on the cable guys. Cable guy. Anyway, it's pretty much under control. I think I'm okay. I think I'm all right. But while I was in my little stupor, my little junkie stupor, I watched a few episodes of Rachel Maddow. Now, I know, I'm sorry, I know you love Rachel Maddow. I know you do. But I got to tell you, I just marveled at how she's able night after night after night to cram 12 minutes of content into a 60-minute program. And she does it every night. I know you love her. I know you do. And again, she's doing her best. I don't assign any nefarious scheming as her motivation. This is just what she does. And everybody loves her. Go ahead, love her. But her scripts are so top-heavy, so bloated, so overwritten. Way too clever, way too earnest, always kind of gimmicky. There's always this kind of sleight of hand quality to them, where she's going down this long, winding road. You don't exactly know why she's going there. But you got to stay with her because she's going to make it all come together in the end. And she always does. She always finds a way to make it all wind up at the finish line. Oh, that's why she was talking about the 13th century monks who devised a new way of stomping grapes. Oh, now it all makes sense. Because she'll pull on that thread and she'll pull and she'll pull and she'll finally at some point make it all relate to what Mitch McConnell had to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's all just such a weird enterprise she's got going on over there. And while she's on the air, if some breaking news happens, she'll come in with it. Okay, oh good. Glad you're there. Glad you're on the air. Give us some breaking news. Her interviews aren't terrible, I suppose. They're always pretty soft. They're with people she already agrees with, and she never challenges them, really. I've never seen her challenge a guest. They're always pretty simpatico. So there's my little Rachel Maddow review. TRMS. Took me a little while to figure that out. TRMS. Oh, the Rachel Maddow Show. Oh, okay, I got it. All right. Oh, no. All right, let's call it a day. I apologize for going down this rabbit hole, but I just couldn't help myself. All right, there it is. I love you. Hang in there. Wear a mask. I'm Charles Purcell.